The files exist. I've held them. Photocopied witness statements, margin notes, and faded ink. Case numbers that lead nowhere when you trace them through any official registry. Documents indicate numerous reports, 40-plus reported incidents between 1950 and 1990, each one describing the same thing. Men who arrived unannounced. Men who asked questions no civilian agency should have been asking. Men who left witnesses too frightened to speak for years, sometimes decades. I've read these pages more times than I can count. Something still doesn't cohere. Not because the witnesses are unreliable, because they're consistent in exactly the wrong ways. Every single account describes the suits. Dark, pressed, fitted, almost too fitted, like whoever wore them understood the idea of a suit without quite grasping how a human body moves inside one. Every single account describes the eyes, and not one of them, not in 40 years of reported encounters, can tell you the face. The face is gone, like it never registered. That detail stopped me cold. First time I read it, I keep returning to it now, because forgetting a face is normal. Forgetting every face across hundreds of accounts, spanning multiple decades, multiple countries, that's not coincidence. That's a pattern. And patterns always mean something. The term Men in Black doesn't come from the 1997 film. It doesn't come from internet folklore. The first documented use of the phrase in connection with UFO witness intimidation belongs to Albert K. Bender. He ran the International Flying Saucer Bureau out of Bridgeport, Connecticut, in the early 1950s. By all accounts, and I've read them, he was serious, methodical. He was building a case. According to available records, in 1953, he shut it down, abruptly. No explanation. Just a notice to members that the organization was closing and that he was done with the subject. His friends said he was terrified. One of them, a researcher named Gray Barker, wrote that Bender had been visited by 3 men in dark suits who delivered a warning. Not an arrest, not an official cease and desist. A warning delivered in person that shut a grown man's investigation down overnight. Barker's account, documented in his 1956 work, They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers, provided the earliest published account of this encounter. Bender himself, years later, wrote about the visit in detail in his 1962 memoir, Flying Saucers and the 3 Men. He described the men as having eyes that seemed to glow, voices that didn't sync with their mouths, and a presence in the room that he could only describe as wrong, like the temperature dropped the moment they walked in. I want to be careful here. Bender was a UFO researcher in 1953. He existed inside a subculture primed for the extraordinary. I hold his account at arm's length. But what I cannot dismiss, what stopped me from closing this file, is this. Bender was not the last one. He was the first. The cases that follow Bender follow a structure. The structure is what unsettles me. A witness sees something, a craft, an unusual light, an aerial phenomenon they can't explain. They report it, or they talk about it, or they make it known. Within days, sometimes within hours, someone comes to the door. Men in dark suits. No badge shown, or a badge shown and pocketed before it can be read. Questions asked in a flat, measured tone. The witness's own experience described back to them in detail before they've given that detail to anyone. That last part is what I keep coming back to. How do they know what was seen before the witness has spoken? This question runs through nearly every credible ME account I've found, enough to fill a filing cabinet. Not fringe websites. Actual testimonies, some recorded, some submitted under sworn affidavit to organizations like NICAP, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, which senators actually read and took seriously. One case consumed months of my research. I'll call the witness R. Christiansen. His full name appears in the record, but his family is still living. Documents indicate a merchant seaman out of New Jersey reported a close encounter with a disc-shaped object while driving home from the docks in 1967. The witness filed a report and spoke to a researcher. 3 days later, 2 men were sitting in his living room. His description: suits too dark, skin too pale, eyes too wide. One of them does all the talking. The other one sits perfectly still, doesn't adjust in his seat, doesn't look around the room, doesn't blink at a normal rate. Christiansen's wife is there. She later tells the researcher she didn't hear the doorbell ring. She didn't hear knocking. She looked up and they were already there, standing in the hallway. Already inside, I called the researcher who documented this case. He's in his 80s now and doesn't speak to journalists. His assistant told me he doesn't discuss that period of his work anymore. I wrote a letter. I have not received a reply. That silence is weight. One detail from Christiansen's account stands apart. The man who spoke wore a ring on his right hand, not a wedding band. Something with a stone, dark, faceted, reflective. Christiansen described it as the most real thing in the room, more real than the men themselves. Like the ring was the object, and the men were just what carried it. I don't know what to do with that description. Now, the government explanation exists, and I won't pretend otherwise. The Air Force, under Project Blue Book, employed investigators who visited civilian witnesses. They wore suits. They asked questions. They sometimes asked witnesses to keep quiet. This is documented. This is real for a significant portion of MIB encounters, particularly from the 1950s and 1960s. The most rational explanation is exactly that: government agents conducting intelligence work they didn't want made public. That explanation covers a lot of ground. It does not cover all of it. According to available records, Project Blue Book officially concluded in December 1969. The MIB reports don't stop. They continue into the 1970s, the 1980s, the 1990s. Different witnesses, different states, different countries' reports suggest the United Kingdom maintains its own substantial catalog of nearly identical encounters. The descriptions don't evolve the way myths usually spread. When folklore takes hold, it picks up regional detail, personal embellishment, local color. These accounts don't. The suits remain the same. The pallor remains the same. The eyes remain the same. The inability to recall the face that remains, consistent across 50 years of testimony, from people with no documented connection to each other. That detail moves my working theory away from purely governmental, because a governmental program that spans 30 years after its host agency closed operates in multiple countries with identical methodology and leaves no recoverable paper trail. That is its own kind of extraordinary claim. I thought I'd mapped the boundaries of this evidence. I thought I understood what it could and couldn't tell me. Then I found the Herbert Hopkins account. According to available records, Hopkins is a doctor, a hypnotherapist in Maine, 1976. He's been working with a UFO witness, using regression hypnosis to help the man recover suppressed memories of a possible encounter. Hopkins is credible, professional, not a sensationalist. One evening, he receives a phone call. A man identifies himself as a representative of a UFO organization and asks if he can come over to discuss the case. Hopkins says yes. He hangs up. He walks to the door to turn on the porch light. The man is already there, already on the porch, already climbing the steps. as though he'd been standing outside before the call was made, as though he knew the answer before he asked the question. The man who enters Hopkins' home is documented in full detail. Bald, no eyebrows, no eyelashes, skin the color of Hopkins' exact words, a cadaver, lips bright red, almost unnaturally so. Hopkins watches as the man raises a gloved hand and wipes his mouth. The red smears. It was lipstick, or something like it. The man had been wearing lipstick, and it was coming off. Hopkins removes a coin from his pocket at the visitor's request. The man tells him to hold it in his palm and watch it. Hopkins watches. The coin becomes blurry at the edges, loses its shape, fades, and according to the documented account, disappears entirely. The visitor then tells Hopkins calmly, without inflection, that one of his neurons is deteriorating, like the coin, and that he should destroy all his work on the UFO case. His tapes, his notes, everything. Hopkins destroys it that night. All of it. He later said he didn't feel he had a choice. Not because of a threat, because of something in the quality of the voice. Something that made resistance feel like a concept that had stopped making sense. I don't know what occupied that room with Herbert Hopkins. I've read his account in enough versions to know it didn't change in the retelling, which is either the mark of a truthful memory or an exceptionally disciplined fabrication. What I cannot explain is the phone call, the timing, the man already on the porch while the line was still warm. That detail reframes every government agent explanation I've been building toward. I've mapped the full body of evidence. Here's where I actually land. 3 explanations deserve serious consideration. I'll give them that credit and tell you exactly where each one breaks down. First, government intimidation. The Air Force, the CIA, and related agencies did conduct witness suppression operations during the Cold War. The motivation was real. UFO hysteria was a national security concern, both as potential cover for Soviet aircraft and as a public panic risk. Men in suits visiting witnesses? Documented. But it doesn't account for the physiological strangeness, the pallor, the eyes, the absent faces. It doesn't account for post-1969 encounters. And it doesn't account for Hopkins' coin. Second, mass psychological phenomenon. The accounts are real experiences, but the cause is internal. Stress, sleep deprivation, susceptibility to suggestion, shared cultural imagery propagating through a community of believers. The human mind under pressure generates extraordinarily vivid false perceptions, and there is real contamination within the UFO research community. Bender's account does get read by later witnesses, which muddies the pool. One detail resists this explanation: the physiological consistency. You can culturally transmit the suits. You cannot easily transmit the absence of a face in every independent account. That detail doesn't appear in primary UFO literature these witnesses were reading. It appears in the encounters themselves. Third, something we don't have a framework for. I say this not as a believer, but as an investigator who has exhausted the first 2 options at their edges. There's a residue in this case that neither government programs nor psychological projection fully absorbs. The Hopkins encounter, the Christiansen account, the phone call made from a porch, the coin that disappeared from a doctor's palm. I can't prove that residue is real, but I'm unwilling to file it as nothing, because when evidence resists every known category, it is not the evidence that's wrong. It's the categories. What these visitors wanted, I cannot say with confidence. Silence seems too simple. Silenced witnesses often broke their silence years later, and nothing happened to them. No follow-up visit, no consequence. which suggests the goal wasn't permanent suppression. It was something else. Disruption, maybe. Destabilization? The replacement of certainty with doubt. If that's the purpose, it worked. I went back to the files last night. The same photocopies I started with, now with my own margin notes layered over the originals. Reports suggest there are documented accounts from rural areas in the early 1970s describing visitors who did not depart in conventional ways. One such account describes a man who walked to the end of a driveway and was no longer visible when the witness looked again. No car, no figure retreating down the street. Just gone. That account ends with a question that her interviewer recorded verbatim. She says, "Was that a man?" I don't know what visited Albert Bender in 1953. I don't know what sat in R. Christiansen's living room without blinking. I don't know what made a coin disappear from a Maine doctor's hand on an autumn evening in 1976. The record exists. The witnesses existed. The fear was real that much is not in dispute by anyone who has sat with this material seriously. What? I know. 70 years of reported encounters across multiple continents describing the same thing in the same language, from people with no documented connection to each other. That is either the most persistent shared delusion in modern history, or it isn't. I don't have a verdict. I'm not sure one exists. What I have is a stack of files on my desk, the unanswered letter to a researcher who stopped talking, and the image I can't shake a man at the end of a driveway. And then no man at all. Was that a man? I'll be carrying that question for a long time.